Unit 7 of AP Physics C is oscillations. So what is oscillations? What is this unit about? Well, we're going to focus on simple harmonic motion, and that means we're going to discuss physical pendula, simple pendula, and spring systems. So what is SHM? Well, SHM, or simple harmonic motion, is a cyclical or periodic motion caused by a linear restoring force. And usually, kind of like how we represented the drag force, it's equal to negative k delta x. As I mentioned, there are three types of simple harmonic motion that we're going to be looking at. The first of these is a mass spring system. So let's draw a little spring right here, and we have our mass, let's call this mass M, on a surface. This is the first case that we're going to look at. The second case that we're going to look at is a simple pendulum. So this is if we have some little rope here. We're going to call this rope basically weightless or massless. It's going to be like negligible weight, negligible space taken up by this rope, attached to something here, some little pivot point, and then we have a little mass on the end. And then our third case is what's called a physical pendula. Now, a physical pendula is basically the same thing as our normal pendula, except for it is a rigid system. So this is not a rope, this is maybe like a stick or a rod, right? So we have our same pivot point, we have our little rod here, and then maybe we even have an additional mass on the end. The point is, with a physical pendula, let me write that down, the physical pendula is that we have some sort of I, we have some sort of rotational inertia going on. Whereas with our simple pendula over here, we do not have that I because this is essentially negligible here. Now, how long does it take for each of these to complete a cycle? I previously mentioned that we are dealing with cyclical or periodic motion. So obviously the question comes up, how long would that take? Well, there's different equations on your reference sheet for each one of these, and you'll notice it's essentially the bottom three on the right-hand side of the mechanics side. So the period of a spring system is T sub S is equal to 2 pi root M over K. The period of a simple pendula is TP equals 2 pi square root L over G. And the final one over here, our physical pendula, is T phys is equal to 2 pi square root I over mgd. Another thing that we should note is that when we're relating frequency and period, T is equal to 1 over F. So 1 over frequency is equal to T. Also note that frequency has units of hertz, and that period has units of seconds. Additionally, you'll see on your reference table that T is also equal to 2 pi over omega. So there's a few things to note here, and we're going to focus on our spring system that we had before. So let me draw that spring system again really quickly. We have our little spring right here, and it's attached to a mass of mass M. When I pull on this spring right here, when I increase the length of the spring, right, it's going to be stretched out. And you know from experience, just with your life experience with the world around you, that when you stretch out a spring, it wants to go back to where it used to be. And that's also kind of what we meant earlier by restoring force. The restoring force basically opposes the direction of displacement. So if I were to compress the spring more, then the restoring force is going to make us go this way, right? If I compress a spring, it's going to basically shoot out back at me, right? But if I pull on the spring, if I pull it this way, then the restoring force is going to make us go back this way. So here's the thing. After I have extended the mass, so after I've stretched out the spring here, something like over here, when the mass is basically where it would be without any forces before I stretch on it, this is called the equilibrium position. And this distance that I stretched it is the amplitude. We'll call this distance x. At the equilibrium position right here, the net force is equal to 0. Additionally, at this point here is when we have the maximum kinetic energy. Why is that? It's because all of our spring energy, all of our potential spring energy has dissipated, right? Because spring energy is equal to 1/2 kx squared, and here our x is just 0. So here we have all kinetic energy, here we have all spring energy. Just an important thing to note. We can also translate this to our pendulum. When we have the pendulum all the way over here on this side, we're at our max gravitational energy. When we have it over here, we're at our max kinetic energy, right? Ke max is over here. It's very simple in comparison to what we've dealt with rotation and things like that. Now, you may be wondering, how can I find what x position this mass is at different times than when it's here or here? And for that, we'll use the last equation on your reference sheet. That is, x is equal to x max cosine of omega t plus phi. All right, the x position is equal to the amplitude, this is our x max by the way, times cosine of omega t plus phi. Now this phi is just a constant, it represents a phase shift. If we don't have a phase shift, we can basically just cut off the equation right here, right? It'll just be cosine of omega t. You can also write this as cosine of 2 pi frequency t. Now we have something exciting, a differential equation. So we saw earlier with our spring force that the sum of the forces was essentially just equal to that negative spring force, right? That restoring force that we experienced. And we called that equal to negative kx. So let's set that equal to ma. And while we're doing that, let's just set it to m times d times the second derivative of x, right? And this should probably look familiar. Let's say this is negative kx over m is equal to d squared x over dt squared, right? Just the derivative here. And now let's make a quick observation. We know that x of t, as we described earlier, is equal to a cosine of omega t. We could add the phi's in there, but it's not really necessary. But if we have dx dt, that means it's equal to the derivative of this, right? So we're going to get negative omega a sine omega t. If I wanted to take the second derivative here, what am I going to get? Well, I'm going to get negative omega squared a cos omega t. And so now that I have that information, I'm going to plug it into the equation that we just had. So going back up here for a second, we have this second derivative of the x of t function is negative, and we're going to plug it in right here. I'm just going to shift the sides here. Negative omega squared a cos omega t, and that is equal to negative k over m times our x of t function, which is a cosine omega t. And you'll notice very quickly, it seems as though we have some stuff that'll cancel out, right? This cos of omega t term will cancel out, this one will too, and that's why I kind of said earlier, if we have the phi in there, it doesn't really matter because it's just going to cancel anyway. Obviously, I knew that and you didn't, so it's okay if that's fine. The next thing that cancels out is our negative signs and our a's, and so what we're left with is that omega squared is equal to k over m for our spring. Now, let's go back up to the equation we made over here. If we know this, then we can simply plug this back in, and what we're going to get is that we're going to get a is equal to negative omega squared x, right? That's just something we can put out there. Another thing that we can derive from this is that omega is equal to the square root of k over m, and this is our angular frequency. This is our angular frequency. A few other results that we can get is that Vmax, our max velocity, is equal to a times this here, a times omega. Another thing that we can get is a max is equal to a omega squared, right? Because we're replacing our x with just this amplitude here, and our acceleration will matter in which direction it is, so we can either cancel the negative or keep it. Another thing that we might want to notice here is that changing the amplitude does not change the period. One last thing that we're going to discuss here is damped SHM. What is damped SHM? Well, when we have something like a spring that is sliding across a surface or a mass that is sliding across a surface, what's going to happen over time, right, is that our oscillations, when we go this way and 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 this way, you can see that our displacement is going to get smaller and smaller as we keep going. And that could be due to air resistance, it could be due to friction, whatever. In the real world, a lot of the time is what we're going to see is this damped SHM. I'm going to spell this out for us as damped damped SHM. And what that means is basically just that the amplitude of the oscillations is going to get smaller as we go on. And so we saw normally we'd have a cosine graph or a sine graph, whatever, so it looks something like this. When we have a damped SHM graph, it's going to just be like that, but over a longer period of time, what we're going to get is this kind of shape that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. We can see as the amplitude decreases as the time increases that the thing is on there. The next thing that we're going to discuss is energy in SHM. Let's calculate ET. So ET for a mass spring system is equal to our spring potential energy plus our kinetic energy, right? We know that our kinetic energy is going to be equal to 1/2 mv squared, and that our spring potential energy is going to be 1/2 kx squared. So let's write that down. 1/2 kx squared plus 1/2 mv squared. And we know that our x term is just going to be equal to the a cosine of omega t. So we're going to have 1/2 k of a cosine omega t plus 1/2 m, and we know our angular velocity, we know our velocity equation, right? It's going to be negative a, we'll shift over for more space here, omega sine omega t squared. Where do we get this from? Well, we know that our dx of t up here, obviously dx of t is just v of t. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get 1/2. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get 1/2 k a squared cosine squared of wt minus 1/2 m a squared w squared sine squared of wt. We're going to factor some things out here. We're going to get 1/2 k a squared of cosine wt minus sine squared wt. And when we just use our trig identities really quickly here, we're going to get that this whole number here is just equal to 1. So the energy of the total energy of our mass spring system is just this guy right here, this 1/2 k a squared, where a is our amplitude. And at this point, we're going to further discuss our pendulums. So let's draw a simple pendulum right here where we have a length of L. We have a force of tension going this way. Let's call this our pivot point right here. We have mg going down. And then we also have some little angle right here, right? Some little theta right here. This L, by the way, is drawn to the center of mass of this little guy right here. Now, mg is the reason why this pendulum is going to rotate. It's the reason why we're going to see a cyclical motion. Why? Because it's the force that is not along the r vector, right? This ft is going right along the r vector here, meaning that if we took the cross product to find torque, we would just get 0. So this ft is not really doing anything for us right now. Thus, we can write our sum of the torques equation as the torques is equal to Lmg sine theta. We also know that because we're going in the negative direction, because it's a restoring force, it's actually going to be a negative torque essentially. So we're going to get negative I alpha is equal to Lmg sine theta. And this is where I introduce you to something called the small angle approximation. The small angle approximation says that for small angles, sine theta is approximately equal to tangent of theta, which is approximately equal to theta. And we can go into how this is derived with Taylor series and things, but you can just look this up on your own. If you have a small sine theta, it's going to be roughly equal to theta, or a small tangent theta, it's going to be roughly equal to theta. So how can we apply this to our differential equation? Well, we can basically just take out this sine term. So we're going to get negative I alpha is equal to Lmg theta, otherwise known as negative I d squared theta over dt squared is equal to Lmg theta. Then we have I a w squared cosine of wt is equal to LMG A cos WT. And notice that when I say W, I really mean omega, but W is a little bit more familiar to us. If you use a W as your omegas, it'll probably work as long as it looks something like an omega. As long as you're being consistent and you're not, using W and omega as completely separate variables, it's okay. Just either use W or use omega, call it W, call it omega. The technically right term though is omega. So once we've done this, we can see that as with our previous differential equations, we're going to have a bunch of stuff cancel. So there goes our i's, there goes our cos of WT, there's our a, cos WT. So we're going to get I W squared is equal to LMG. What does this mean? It means that W squared is equal to LMG over I. So now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go plug that into what we had before. So now that we know that we had this guy right here, we can rearrange this as alpha is equal to LMG over I theta. Right, we're going to have our negative symbol over here, and then we're just going to plug this guy in, so we're going to get negative omega squared theta. And you'll notice this is pretty similar to the one that we had with the spring.